All right. So this is the first time we'll start talking about the main AWS account. Our first or our previous video are just theoretical parts, which are like introduction. Before you start using a service, you want to understand how the service is structured. So that will help you to use it in the proper way. All right. Before this, let's actually see how do we, like I asked you guys to create your accounts before today. I hope everybody in this class have actually created their own account. It's either you created one or you have one that you've created earlier. If you have difficulties creating your account, please go back and watch that video. After you watch the video, you still have difficulties, please post it in the chat, in the Telegram, so that somebody will attend to you. I may not be able to attend to you. We have a lot of people that do know how to create the account. And if you see a question posted to the Telegram, if it is something that you know, please kindly attend to it and let's help each other. All right. If you want to connect to your AWS account, remember, cloud computing is accessing technology service or IT services over the internet. So let's say I've partnered with AWS. I want to use AWS Cloud. What I just need to do is to go to their website. And the website of AWS is aws.amazon.com. So the first thing for me is to register my account, is to create an account by going to create account and fill in the information. And once you fill in all those information and you put your credit card or your debit card, the debit card will not be charged. I think by the time you create, when you create your resources, they will charge you $1 and immediately they will refund it back just to test that that account is valid. And after that, they won't charge you if you don't use, or they won't charge you if you stay within the free limits. There are some resources that they are free. There are some that they are not free. There are some that you can use the free trial. So I will be telling you which resources are free that you need to use and which resources, if you are discussing about a particular resource that is not free, I will let you know it is not free. So if you use them, they're going to charge you. But any resources that you use, make sure you terminate it immediately you finish so that they don't charge you. Or even if they're charging you, it's not going to be much. So once you create your AWS account, there are two main things that when you created or when you are creating your account, that are required. The username and the password. Those are the two main things that you need to connect to the AWS website and the data center. So when you log in for the first time, the email that you use to log in is what is referred to as the root account. And then the password is the password for the root account. And that is the first thing you need to be able to sign in to the AWS for the first time. So that email you use, put the email here. So this is my own email. This is my own email that I use, training@thecornelis.com. Then when you click on enter, it's going to request for that password. So just type the password here. And when you click on next, sign in, it will take you to AWS environment. Oh, you want me to identify myself? Okay, yeah, I think it actually requests this because I changed my phone number yesterday. Let me see. seconds, guys. I changed the phone number I have on record yesterday to my official phone number instead of my private phone number. That is why it's bringing out this. So let me just quickly do that. Let me pause the video for here so that will not be hard. All right, so if you want to log into your AWS account for the first time after you sign in or after you register, you go to sign in. Then the username and the password, I mean the email and the password that you use for the first time, that is what you need to sign in. So if you are using those two credentials to sign in, you see here that says sign in using root user email. That is what you want to click. And then you provide the root user email address here. So this is my own email address. When you click on next, it's going to ask for the password, that same password that you use. Put the password here. Then it's going to log you in. If it doesn't log you in and it's requesting for multi-factor authentication, just skip that for now. Skip it. Then we'll go back to that later. Skip it. If you ask for multi-factor authentication, skip it. So this is the AWS interface. So any of the AWS data center that you want to use, this is where you are going to be communicating with them. So for you to be able to communicate to AWS data center, any of their resources, there are two things that you need or that we use here. The credentials, that's the main thing that you need. You need the credential, because if they don't have credential, that means anybody can just start using their data center. So you need a username and a password. And that username and password, which is called your authentication, actually has what we call an authorization. With that username and the password you use, it comes an authorization, and that is what you can do. In security, there is something called authentication and authorization. Authenticate will give you access to enter something or somewhere, while authorization will allow you to perform or do something. If I invite you to my house, if I give you key, like, oh, when you get to my house, even if I'm not around, take this key to enter my house. That is me giving you authorization, I mean authentication. The key I give you will authenticate you in, will let you come in. But I just say enter into my house, but I didn't say anything thereafter. So your responsibility or your understanding is like, oh, he gave me access to his house so I can do anything I want. No. Giving you key to my house just give you access to the entrance. So for me to allow you to use any of my thing, I will give you authorization. So I will say, okay, you can go to my living room, you can sit down there, you can go to my kitchen, you can get whatever you want, you can go to my bathroom, you can ease yourself. Those are the only authorization, only access, my access that I give you authorization to use. I do not give you authorization to my bedroom. So if you go to my house, or if you come to my house and you go to my bedroom, that means you are passing your authorization limits. So authentication and authorization, they are very, very key. So when you sign in for AWS account, the first thing you get is authentication, and that is the username, the email, and the password. By default, that username and password that you use to sign in comes the root user. Let me say the root user email is the authentication. The user email and password is the authentication. By default, AWS give that root user full authorization, meaning that with that user, you can do everything on AWS. They give it full authorization so that you don't have any limits whatsoever. But this is not ideal. You want, maybe if you now employ somebody or you want to give access to somebody so that they can also use your account, you want to limit their authorization to what they can do only. Limit their authorization to what they can do only. So when we go, let's go back. Clear the screen. So now that we sign into our AWS account, this is our AWS account. So this is what you are going to see for the first time. Let me click on here. This is what you are going to see for the first time. If you click on this AWS, that is the home page. Currently, I don't have anything on my account, although this is a old account. So I just try to delete a lot of things and reset it so that it can look like new. So now let's go back to the presentation. You can see that we've logged into the AWS account. This process of logging in directly to this interface that we are seeing is what is referred to as console, management console. So there are multiple ways of interacting with your AWS account. The first one is logging in or interacting using the management console, and that is what we did when we signed in here. With this, you sign in to the management console. So for you to sign into the management console, we can see that we use what? Our username and our password for the root user. We use the username and password for the root user. So that is the main or the primary way of signing in, the root user and the password. There are other means of connecting to your AWS account. We have another one called the command line interface. Command line interface. For those of you that are using laptops, I believe if I go to my home screen, the main way that majority of you use to sign in, or let's say you want to create a folder on your desktop, the way to create a folder is right click. If you are using Windows, then select new and create a folder. Then you name it. Call it maybe my folder 1. So I've created a folder on my system that I can move it around. This process of coming to the interface and create a folder is called GUI. We are working with graphical user interface. Graphical user interface, GUI. That might not be well seen. Let me change the color to white. We call GUI, graphical user interface. There are another means of creating exactly the same folder. In this one is called command line. CLI, command line interface. CLI, command line interface, and graphical user interface. So with the graphical user interface, that is when you come to the console, to the user interface like this and be creating things, open file. And this is what 80 to 99% of people do. But this is okay. But if you are working in a high intense environment, or you are a programmer, or you work in an industry, you're a developer, this might not be the best option, because with this, there's limits to what you can do. But with here, there are no limits to what you can do. You can do more. Don't let me say there's no limit. You can do more than this. And this is tend to be faster than this. But to everyday man, everyone, this is our preferred option, because it's better to see than not to see. So if I want to create the same folder without doing it in the console, there are something called, I don't know, maybe you've used it before. It's called command prompt. You will see one dark page like this. Believe me, I can write code, very simple code, and we also create a folder. So let's first go into, you don't need to understand this. So let's just say this is it here. If I want to create that same folder, I just need to write a command, make mkdir, make directory, and I'll just give it the name of the directory, called my folder 2. And look here, something is going to be created here. My folder 2, if I press enter, you see, it creates a folder. It creates another folder. So look at it now and tell me which one is faster. Is it this first one or this second one? Now let's create it again. Now, if you can count maybe like 1 to 10 for me to create this, and let's see which one is more faster. So I'm creating on the desktop now. Step 1, select this, go to folder, give it this name, then clear this one and press and type on my folder 3. Okay, say there's folder 2, so folder 3. And now I create a folder. I move it here. Now look at the second means. mkdir, my folder 4. No, there's folder 3. Okay, there's difference between the spelling. This one is new folder and this one is my folder 3. So you can see how fast this is now. I can create, if I want to create another folder, I can just do folder 4. Look at how fast it is to create folder with this, folder 5. So this way is more faster when you are using command than graphical user interface, because the code that you've written before, you can use it again. Just modify small thing there and you are good. So the same process happens on the cloud too. If you want to interact with AWS accounts, you can also use command line interface. And the last one is software development kit. You are not going to be working in any of this, because this is majorly for the developers, although it's a good thing to have knowledge about it, but it's not for basic or beginners. So the command line interface, we're going to be seeing some of the command line interface. Please bear with me. It's code. For those of you that doesn't like code, you are free to skip it and just focus on the management console, which is graphical user interface. But I must bet you, if you know how to write the command line, it's always good. And I'm going to show you how to be able to write command line and how to write this as well. But our main focus is going to be on the management console. So when you are learning for the first time or you're a beginner, always stick with this management console. Then when you know what you are doing, then you can be going to the command line interface and SDK. So these are the 3 main means of connecting to your AWS account. And we've seen the first one. So, and here is just like a diagram sign into the console. This is the interface before, but AWS have changed it. So it's still the same thing with just the signing in button that we click somewhere when we want to open our account. I mean, when we want to sign in. That's when we went to, let me play this. Here, it's still the same thing as what you see here, but AWS have changed their interface. So that is why this has changed from this to this. but it's still listening. So this is what you're going to click now. And when you sign in, put your username, your root user, and your password. Those are the two main things that you need to sign in for the first time. And once you sign in, it's going to take you to the interface. And this is the interface here. So that is the connecting with to the management console. That is connecting to the management console. The second means is interacting with AWS via CLI, which is command line interface. If you want to interact with AWS CLI, the first thing you must sign in first to the console and generate what we call user identity. And your user identity might be a username. This is different from the root user. You have to generate a new username. A new username. In some cases, you don't need username, but that is on the advanced side. But the main thing, the primary one, is to generate a new username. And after you generate that username, because that username will give you a limited privilege compared to the root user that give you unlimited privilege. So once you generate the username, you're going to use the username to generate an access key ID, which looks like this, and then a secret access key, which look like this. So these two or these three is what you are going to use to set up this config that we saw earlier. This is what we are going to use to set up this config, because if you don't pass that username, the username to this config, it will not be able to talk to AWS. If you want to see where I kept mine when I set it up, if I just do something like cat, you don't need to worry about this code. If I do cat, no, hold on. Cat slash, this is a Linux command, so I don't know if it's going to work in Windows. So let me just try it first. AWS credential. No, I don't want that one. Okay, so it doesn't understand the cat command. So I don't want to, I actually want to use this, but there is another one I can use to actually show you the command. But I'll just, okay, let me quickly do that. I'm just going to open another one. I'm going to call this one bash. So the default CLI that comes with your system, especially Windows, is this command prompt. Though there is also another one that called PowerShell. All these are command prompts. You can see it's exactly the same thing, PowerShell command prompts. These are default for Windows. But there are other third-party command prompts that you can also use that is more friendly and more nice more friendly and more easy to use than command prompts. So here is a bash, but bash 2 is okay, but there is one that is very common, and it is what I will recommend you to use. It's called Visual Studio Code. So, and this is how it looks. So with Visual Studio Code, you just go to you just search online VS Code, download, then just download for Windows. There's a video on our link on our website, and I also think there's a video on the YouTube. If it's not there, I will put it there that you can download. I can walk you through how to download Visual Studio Code. So just click on download, then download for your window and run it. But there's a video for it. So let's assume that you already have that. Escape. So let's assume that you already have that. I'm just going to bring it up again. So this is my VS Code. If I go to here, let me open it wide. Go here, you see terminal, new terminal. Then I can click on this. So here now I can write exactly the same code that I was writing on my command prompt. I can write exactly the same. This is like a third-party tools, and this is one that Microsoft give you as default. So the same code that I'm writing here, create file or create folder 5, and I can write it here too. Create, no, it's going to be make directory folder 6. So if I go to my desktop, I will see both of them there. Okay, I didn't pick desktop. Okay, yeah. So don't worry, this is Linux. You don't need to worry about this. I'm not teaching Linux in this class. I just want to tell you that you can use terminal, either the one that comes with AWS or the one that is third-party tools. It's not, I mean, the one that comes with Microsoft or the one that comes with Windows. You can use either one of them. So if you want to use, let's assume this is one we're using. If I want to see where I kept those secrets so that you'll be able to connect to AWS accounts, if you do cat AWS credentials, look at it here. This is the default because I don't have a username. I have access key ID, and you can see it here. Secret key ID, and you can see it here. Immediately after this class, I will delete this because the video is going to be posted publicly, so I don't want anybody to interfere with my account. So if you want to connect to your AWS account using CLI, you must get the access key and secret access key. You are going to use both of them to configure the terminal. Until that, you will not be able to use this terminal to talk to the AWS account. Are you getting me? So I will teach you how to do it, but for now, let's focus our attention on the console. And the third one is interacting with AWS accounts using SDK. And this is when you are now writing a program, complete program. And if there are lots of programming out there, I'm not saying you should go and start learning programming. You have Java, you have Python, we have C#, we have Ruby, you have a lot of them. But the one I pick, I know how to write JavaScript, Node, Python, but Python is very, very good. So if you understand Python, you can also write Python code to interact with your AWS account. And this is exactly an example of it here. There is a website for this if you want to start using Python for your AWS account. And that website is called Boto3. Boto3, and here it is here. So if you click on Boto3, this is the documentation, Boto3 documentation. So if you start reading this documentation, then you will be able to write Python for your AWS account. But we are not going to deal with this. We are not going to deal with this. I think I have a course that I'm going to do on this. It's very, very good if you know Python. Even if you want to work out there, company will expect you to know Python so that you can use it to interact with AWS. And if you have interest to learn any programming language, I will advise you go and learn Python because it's easy. It's just like a plain English, and it's easy to write, and you can use it for a lot of things. If you are in data science, you need Python. If you are in software development, you need Python. If you're in cloud, you need Python. If you're cybersecurity, you need Python. So it's across a lot of field. So it's the best programming language to learn if you are interested. So let's go back. So this is the ways to interact. These are the 3 ways to interact with your AWS account. So now let's go fully into the management console and demonstrate. Let's review the management console homepage. Let's open the list of all the services. Then let's access recent visited service and find a service by name, keyword, or acronym. Then finally, we are going to create service shortcuts in the console bar. So these are what we are going to do. And after this, we go to our knowledge check. All right, to the console now. Once you log into your console, remember when you are logging in, for the first time, you are using your root user, put in your username, sign in, and put in your password. And once you are connected, it's going to take you to the console home. This is called management console. So if somebody tell you that, hey, go to the management console and do this, what they are just telling you is sign in using your username and your password. And once you are here, then work directly from here instead of writing code or command. When you are writing things here, this is called command. When you, like this one that I wrote here, mkdir, with a 1, this is called command. I can also use it to interact with my AWS. I just say AWS ls, AWS S3 ls. This is a command in AWS. And what this command is just doing is going to go to one of the AWS services that is called S3, and it's going to list out all the bucket that I have. You can see it, it tells me that I have 3 buckets. And you can do exactly the same thing on the management console. If I go to the same S3 here and open it, I want to list it, I want to see the bucket that I have, and it's also going to tell me that I have 3 buckets. And you can see it here, this bucket here is also what we have here. If you look at the name, they are exactly the same. CF template 2W, CF template 2W, and things like that. And this is project bucket AAA, project bucket AAA. So you can see I can interact either using the command or using the console or writing a full script. So now back to the console. So the first thing that I want to do, we want to review the management console homepage. And this is the management console homepage. See, the best option is to rearrange all these cards that you are seeing here, rearrange it so that by the time you log into your AWS, you are seeing the most important thing. If I don't want AWS to welcome me and welcome to AWS on my home page, I can remove it, remove widget. If there is any AWS health check that AWS open that I need to know, then I can leave this. But if I'm not really care about the AWS health check, I can remove it. Solutions that AWS have, I don't want, remove it. Trusted advisor, I can clear this script, like remove all of them. And guess what I can do? I can now actually put my own widget so that those things that I need for my day-to-day activities. If you have already arranged your page before, you can reset to the default layout, or you can choose a layout that you want by adding widgets. I can also, okay, I want to start adding widgets. Recent AWS blog post. If you are a very fan of AWS blog, you can add this widget by clicking and drag. You can see, you can paste it in any of these cards here. If you want it to occupy the whole 4 card, you just put it here. But if you don't want it to occupy the whole 4, you can drag up maybe to 2, to 3, to 4 or 5, or you can drag down as long as you want it. So I'm just going to remove this. I'm not a fan of blog for now. So the solutions, AWS Explorer, my favorite. The favorite is good, but I'm not going to put the favorite as card. I'm going to show you another place to put your favorites. Then recent visit. I want to actually see if I visited AWS service I want to be able to easily go back to the same service. So I'm going to put this recent visit here so that you can see these are the services that I visited before. And if I want those services again, I don't want to be looking for them. I just want them to be readily available on my console. Then cost. I want to know how much I'm spending. So I'm also going to put one here for my cost so that I know how much I'm spending on AWS. Yeah, don't think that you're going to spend this cost. Just I do a lot of things on AWS and I spend a lot of money too for practice and other things. So I'm spending the money so that you won't spend the money. Then if there is other things that you want, this trusted advisor is good. I'm going to put one there. And I'm just going to reduce it to 1 or 2. Then security 2, I'm going to put it to 2. I want to have a very glance if there's any security issue that I need to know about. Then I think those are all I need. Okay, let me add AWS health check so that if AWS tell me there's going to be an update, I can know about it. So this is the only thing I need. Every other thing I don't need it. So this is the first thing you need to do once you log into your AWS account. Then the second thing is that if there is a service that you want to work with, you can search for that service. There are a lot of services on AWS, and if you click on these services, it's going to show you a list. This is the category of service: analytics, application integration, blockchain, compute, container. So database, you don't need to understand all of this topic because nobody does. What you just need, pick those services that are very, very important to you. And there are some services that we call them core services or features services. And those are the services that we're going to be looking at. And what I'm going to do, those services are, let me list them. Compute is very, very important. We're going to do compute. Let me use my red. You're going to do compute. Database, those are the core services, the main services. You're going to do networking and content delivery, as we discussed earlier. Let me scroll down. Networking, storage. I'm going to do storage. Networking. We are not doing satellites because I scroll up. I scroll down. That's why you are seeing this. So we are not doing this. So we are going to do storage. Come on. Security, storage security, networking, database, and compute. Those are our focus, and those are the primary services that you need to understand. If you are going for any interview, those are the core services that you need to focus on. And we are also going to look at some of management and governances. So those are the topics that you need to pay attention on. There is a particular service that is coming rapidly, that is being used rapidly now, and it's called container. But we are not touching container, but I'm going to introduce you to it, but not in full details. This is on the solution architect package. So let me clear the screen. So if there is any, those are the categories. Under compute, there are multiple resources under compute. So if I click on compute, you can see these are all categorized under compute. So you don't need to understand all of these services under compute. Under the compute services, the only resources, the main resources that we want to work with is EC2. And when you click on the star that is behind that resources, it's going to append it at the top here. It's going to append it. It's going to favorite it here so that you can easily, it's going to be easily accessible. So we're going to work with EC2. We're going to work with Lambda. And all the remaining service, we are not working with them. Then for the database, when you click on it, for database, we're going to talk about majority of all of these. But the one that we are actually going to do practical on is this and this, DynamoDB and RDS. Then when you go to management and governance, CloudTray, CloudFormation, CloudWatch, config, organization, those are our major control tower. But I'll just explain control tower to you. We don't really have time for that in this practical, but in solution architect, yes, we're actually going to do this control tower and AWS organization. Then when we go to networking, we're going to work with CloudFront. We discussed CloudFront this morning, Route 53, VPC, and I will introduce you to API Gateway. Then security, there's a lot of this. All of this, one certificate, Cognito, detective. Okay, these actually are not in the cloud practitioner. They are in solution architect. This one also is in solution architect, detective in solution architect, guard duty, IAM. IAM is the most important under this security. Going to understand inspector, Macy. I will introduce all of this to you and where you can get hands-on practical on it, should in case we don't have time to touch them. How is this dog back now? Security hub. And WAF. I talked about WAF the other time, that you put it in front of your edge location, I mean, CloudFront and load balancer. So that is that. And for storage, EFS, S3, Glacier, those are what we're going to look at. You can see now all those topics that I put up, I click, it append them here. And any service that you want to remove from this append, just go back to the service. If you want, if there's anything that is appended and you don't really want them here, what you just need to do, click on the service, remove the star, uncheck the star. So I'm going to remove some of them so that that place is too clustered. I just need very few of them there. So for example, if I go to my, let me go to the management, I'm going to remove all of this for now. Then go to the networking, I'm removing all of them for now. So I just need the basic one, security. You can see that I'm removing it, is removing from here. So this is the setting that you first want to do so that you can make your life easier. So I'm just going to leave this one. These are the major ones that I want to focus, I need here. And don't forget that any service you use, we still have the AWS homepage, the home console, that you can see recent visited service here. So you can still as well use this. Then the third thing on our agenda is accessing recently visited services. Go back one step. Accessing, we have done this. We have reviewed the AWS Management Console. We have opened the list of all the services. Now we are accessing recently visited service. So here are my recently visited services. You see, these are the services that I just visited. And if I visit that S3 Glacier, then if I go back by clicking this AWS, you will see that it must have added that S3 Glacier. So any service that you visit is going to add it here to the top. The next one on our agenda is to finding a service by name, keyword, or acronym. So if there is a service that you want to work with and you don't know the service or you have not used it before, you can actually search for it. So for example, let me say I want to work with a service called Code Pipeline. Code Pipeline. This is a DevOps service. Code Pipeline. So I can actually search for the name. Here it is, Code Pipeline, or I can just use a keyword like pipeline, and it's still going to bring all those ones that has pipeline. So I'll say, okay, data pipeline, no, code pipeline. Then I can click on it or check this box to add it to my list. So that is how to search for a service by name, by acronym, or by keyword. Creating service shortcuts in the console bar. We already done this. This is the shortcuts that we've created. So this is the only thing I want to show you today. Now, we are getting there, but everything we've been discussing from the first day, this is the 4th day, we've not touched AWS at all. We're just introducing ourselves gradually. And I like the way I introduce you to it. We don't just jump like, hey, this is your AWS account, start working. You understand the challenge that we have initially, how we all started, then we have issue of data center challenges, and then how we using other people's data center, which is called cloud. Then we understand the advantages of cloud, then now we open our own account. So I believe I'm carrying everybody along. And if you are left behind or you don't understand what is going on, please reach out to me or you post your question in the Telegram. So we will answer your question. Then let's go to the final part of the section. I know the time has gone. Permit me, or if you don't want the knowledge check, that is fine. You have already had the this presentation to the training.thecornelis.com, so you can get it from there. It's on the first video on training.thecornelis.com, so you can print it out from there. But if you print it out or if you get it from there, it might not look as it is looking now because there are some animation that I added, and that animation will make the printout look somehow, except if you actually present it, then you can see it exactly the way I'm saying it. So if you open this, then you go to the first video, the one, this first video here, and the exercise. You see, this is the PDF here. This is the PDF here, so you can download it and be using it to follow me. But it might be slightly different from yours. It's exactly the same thing, but I'm presenting my own, so that's why the animation are coming out fine. But if you are just reading it without presenting it, then they might look like they are on top of each other. So bear in mind. So our first question is, as an AWS cloud practitioner, you have been tasked to research the AWS global infrastructure elements that would best suit your company's need for storing backup data in multiple geographical areas during their transition to the cloud. So this question is just asking you like, oh, you've been tasked to like help your company to best find out which of the AWS elements will suit them if they really need to store backup data center in multiple geographical locations. So they want to store backup in multiple geographical locations. Backup. So which AWS elements of global infrastructure will you suggest? Like, okay, this is what should be your focus. And anyone to attempt? I know you guys already saw it because I opened it. It's region. The region, because if you are storing your backup in multiple geographical locations, then you want to select different region. If you select the availability zone, it's still the same geographical location, but separate data center. TheCornelis Inc. serves IT training content to users worldwide. To optimize the performance of their website, they want to use a content delivery network. Which elements of the AWS global infrastructure will you advise them to use for content delivery network? Anybody?
Edge location.
That's edge location. Your company have a requirement to ensure that their critical mission application is available to legitimate user 99% of the time. In order to achieve this, your company is thinking of migrating the applications to the cloud. Which of the elements of AWS global infrastructure should your company utilize to achieve this requirement? If they want availability to legitimate user 99% of the time, that means they want their resources to be highly available. So which resources or which elements of the cloud of the global infrastructure will you suggest?
Availability zone.
Availability zone. I think guys are tired, nobody responding. Okay, maybe you just like the option one. All right, read and tell me the answer. I'm not reading for you. And I want participation, please.
Best practice.
So I say D. D.
B.
D as in David.
Which of the best describe edge location?
Location, content delivery, and routing.
Which one?
D for dog.
D for dog. Yeah, thank you. That's number 4. No, oh, sorry, I'm supposed to come down. Which of the following is an advantage that users experience when they move on-prem workload to the cloud? Which advantage do they experience? Which one? Anybody? When you move your resources from on-premise to the cloud, that means you are eliminating expense for running and maintaining data center because you don't manage the data center again. Another person is managing the data center. So which factor should be considered when selecting a region? Here you select 2. Which factor should you consider? You are selecting
A and D.
A and D. You have to proximity to the customers and compliance with data government and legitimate requirements. Which statement best describe Amazon CloudFront? Because we have not done that before, but I did talk about it though, is global content delivery. When we're talking about edge location, we talk about CloudFront, and CloudFront deals with global content delivery. Which site does Amazon CloudFront use to cache content, copy of your content? Which one? No, this is not correct. I think this might be my mistake. It's actually edge location. The site that AWS used to cache content, to cache copies of content for fast delivery to user at any location is edge location, not availability zone. This is wrong. All right, that is the end of module 2. In our next class, which is tomorrow, this is when the main work starts, computes. So we now start going to look at the services in the cloud. So this is where the hands-on will come in. And from tomorrow, we're going to be taking attendance. If you miss more than 2 attendance without any reasonable excuse, you might not be allowed to come into the class again. Yeah, because I want people to take it serious. I don't want to time. All right, so that is the end of the class. I want to appreciate you guys for coming today, and let's see you tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. and on Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. Central. If there is no other question, I want to say thanks and bye-bye.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.